Hey everybody, welcome to Carpe DM. In this channel, we're going to focus on everything that it means to be a DM. That's world building, session prep, and so much more, with a huge emphasis on being family friendly. Because after all, whether you're 8 or you're 80, a good story is a good story. Alright, so a little bit of background. My D&D group just finished their 5-year campaign, and oh my paylor, was there so much to learn. So as we're beginning to prep and ready ourselves for campaign 2, I really want to break down that process from all the things that I've learned and all the mistakes that I've made in this completely homebrewed setting. I had so many questions, and I decided to just start creating our story half a decade ago. So now I'm going to keep those same questions in mind as we build additional videos. Now, before we get to the meat of it, I want to make one thing entirely clear: that creation is a messy, chaotic, and unique process. I may do some things that you don't, and other people will say different things. My purpose isn't to tell you what to do. It is, however, meant to inspire you, to help you learn from my many hard-earned mistakes. So, let's get to the very beginning of creation. No, not that. I mean at the very beginning of your creation process. See, many people start off by making a map. Other people, they begin by making small villages and just building off of that. And those are great if that's what you do. For me, I approach world building as if I'm going to approach a story, like I'm writing it. I am an English teacher, so be prepared for that. See, I base my campaign around a central theme. And central themes are really important because they're basically what's going on in your world. What's the points of interest? What are the ideas that you believe would be interesting to explore and have an impact upon the plot and setting? It's not just small stories here and there. It's the overarching themes of what makes up the time that you're in. See, these can be simple ideas, simple questions like, how powerful is friendship? Or how does good overcome evil? In my last campaign, however, I took inspiration from a lot of different sources to explore in my world. Now, you'll hear this often, but beg, borrow, and steal any ideas from anywhere to put them into your campaign. See, my favorite episode of Star Trek is the one where they get into the heated argument of whether Data, who is an artificial construct, is considered a person. This reminded me a lot of Warforged, who were created for the sole purpose of war. What do you do with them when the war is over? One of my players was actually a Warforged, and they encountered racism in certain areas, and in other areas he was seen as a hero. It was really interesting and eye-opening for him. The Warforged player really loved the idea of completely different social experiences based on his geographic location, and it really made him think about things like prejudice and justice, things that mirror our own lives. I also had themes of traditional culture versus societal advancement, faith versus zealotry, and other just wide-ranging themes. These were interesting because no matter where you were on the campaign setting, they were always these themes that were going on in the back of our head that influenced everything that the characters did, that they experienced, and that they saw. See, I prefer to use themes that have no clear-cut answer. But when you can present an argument with equally convincing sides, it really makes players think about their characters' choices versus their own personal beliefs, and sets up some excellent opportunities for character growth, both on and off the table. Now, these topics may not be appropriate for younger audiences on such a large scale. So if you're working with kids or working with young teenagers, you may want to set up a more small-scale theme. Is it ever okay to lie? Freedom of choice versus the safety of rules. Is it better to fit in or stand out? Things that kids, especially teenagers, actually have to deal with in their everyday lives. It's a great way for them to develop escapism, for them to practice different personalities, to really explore not only their characters, but themselves. Okay, so Pick a theme. Pick a central theme or two. For this one, I'm tackling a few really fun ideas, I think. I've got one that's kind of the greater good versus individualism for my next campaign. Atheism, what does that look like in a world full of literal gods? Tradition versus advancement, just the really lighthearted topics. So traditionally, DMs would have to organize this like they're running a small government. You'd have to go to Staples as often as you went to your local game store to buy organizers, folder tabs, color-coded paper, all kinds of things. To put all of this together, it was a monumental task. It was a logistical nightmare to even pull off, especially for more of the wildly creative types. That's a nice way of saying disorganized people like me. See, we've come a long way since we've been limited to just paper and pencil. If you do it that way, fantastic, you're much better at organization than I am. So at the forefront of everything right now, there is a 2-letter abbreviation. There are so many iterations of this groundbreaking technology, and it's changing and evolving so quickly, it's almost impossible to keep up with. Honestly, I'm filming this knowing that in probably 6 months, the information I'm going to be presenting to you may be out of date. There may have been brand new and even more improved ways to do what I'm going to help you guys out with. And that's okay. I'm here to let you guys know what the coolest thing is right now. So, this first trick that I have, you can use this with any of the big players. I'm talking Copilot, Gemini, Llama, Claude, that X thing they're calling Grok. But for today, we're using the OG, ChatGPT. Use whatever you're comfortable with, as long as it has a static chat log for a conversation that you can come back to and can continue later on. Now, before we begin anything else, I do want to make one other thing really clear. AI is not a replacement for your own creativity. It's great for filling the small details, but it's not so good at being a writer, at least not yet. This is your setting, so anything that's important should come directly from you. This is the story that you are trying to tell, not a story you're trying to be told. So, why would we use AI? Sure, it's really good at generating all this filler text, but there's a couple of other things it does really well that I think is worth pointing out. Spitballing, brainstorming, whatever you call it, it's messy work. ChatGPT cuts down on that work and makes it so much faster and, to be honest, a lot more fun. With it, I can throw a ton of ideas, just whatever I think, and if I don't like them, I can say, you know what, actually delete that, and instead I want this. See, I use it when I'm driving around doing errands, or when I have just 5 minutes to burn waiting for my wife when she's shopping. I just whip it out and it's like... Let's see what this looks like in practice. I've got ChatGPT here. It's an app that I have on my phone, iOS, Android. It's available everywhere. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see it's got these little headphones. Those headphones allow you to have a conversation back and forth with the app. Now, I've been doing quite a bit of world building on this particular conversation. That's kind of the point. There are a couple of locations that I still need to really flesh out and dive into, so I'm going to ask it if there is anything in particular that I need to look at. This is what world building is here live, and it's a great way to have that conversation back and forth. Once I have a couple of ideas and a couple of new details that I've thrown in there, I'm going to ask it to make that summary. Here goes. Hey there, I want to go ahead and make some more adjustments to Rabanath. So what were the towns that we had in Rabanth?
The towns in Rabanath that we have are Nasiribad, the capital, Jalizar, a major...
Yeah, can we talk about Jalizar? And I want to flush that one out a little bit. Let's get a couple of details in there. Maybe let's talk about who the mayor is. The mayor, I want him to be a gentleman from the area, again with that Persian Aztec influence. Could you give me some ideas?
Sure. Let's flesh out Jalizar, starting with the mayor. Mayor of Jalizar. Name, Mayor Farzan El Malik.
Okay, let's talk about Farzan and the way that he interacts with the incoming empire. I want to say that he probably is outwardly very receptive to being conquered and plays very nice with the locals, but In private, he's actually funding some of the local resistance cells that are in the area and works closely with them to pass them along with information and things.
Farzan seems like a fascinating character. Do you want to add any more details about his background, his personality, or how he manages his dual roles?
Yeah, let's add a little bit more about his personality. He seems to be very no-nonsense type person. He's not one to joke around, and he takes anyone who takes the situation lightly with a lot of contempt.
Mayor Farzan El Malik of Jalizar is a no-nonsense leader who shows contempt for anyone taking situations lightly.
Okay. Give me a quick summary of everything that's happening in Rabanath. Make it 3 paragraphs long.
Certainly. Rabanath, a once prosperous city, now finds itself under Tau occupation.
Cool. Make that 1 sentence.
Rabanath, once prosperous, now under Tau occupation, undergoes cultural assimilation and resistance, led by Mayor Farzan El Malik, who covertly supports local resistance against the Tau hegemony's imposition of the greater good philosophy.
Okay, I think that's it for now. Let's go ahead and take a break.
Got it. Take care.
And just like that, I'm able to put it away until I'm ready to expand more or world build. It's great because I can ask questions of it. I can seek advice. It's a pretty powerful tool. I can pick this up and I can put it down. Inspiration strikes anywhere. My daughter was watching the Tinkerbell movie, which is very underrated and a great source of fantasy ideas, by the way. And I saw something from it that inspired me. It's some obscure mechanic that I hadn't thought out yet. And so I stepped out, I grabbed my phone, pulled out ChatGPT, and I told it to add this idea. That's all I wanted. And then I paused it, I closed it down, and I went right back to what I was doing. It just takes 5 minutes, and now I have that flash of inspiration with me forever. By asking for a 5-sentence summary of a region, a person, an organization, or something, ChatGPT does an excellent job of organizing my thoughts and putting them into a coherent structure that accurately depicts what I have in the world. As we continue this chat log, it continues to pick up on the flavors and the nuances and the themes that I'm trying to portray in my setting. The longer you use the conversation thread, the more it understands what your world will have and how each topic intermingles with the others. But as for what is important to your central themes in your campaign, which is typically cultures, countries, important people, those you can map out easily, spitballing them, and then use ChatGPT to help organize it all together. Next up, and I know this might be really obvious for those of us who use it, but use text-to-image generators. There are tons out there, and personally, I prefer Midjourney, especially now that it has a browser version and you don't have to fight off people in Discord, but there are tons of them out there that have their own uses. Copilot's one of them. This is Microsoft's baby, and they are pushing it hard. It's basically a ChatGPT premium subscription for free, and they're improving it all the time. This has built-in text-to-image generator by DALL-E 4, which is really impressive, especially when it's free. If you use Copilot to world build, and they just recently added in those saved conversations that I was talking about, you could essentially ask it to generate an image of each region, or person, or thing that you've been working on, and it'll spit out an image based on what you've already talked about. So a lot of that prompt engineering doesn't exist because you already know it. Next up, let's talk about Midjourney. Now, Midjourney is a paid subscription, but man, it is the king of image generation right now. Most of the time, I'm able to feed in a summary of what I worked in on ChatGPT, and then it renders it beautifully. It's a little more work, but I really enjoy the work it creates. A really cool trick with Midjourney is that, let's say I'm creating a king, and all that I know is that he's old and he has an eye patch. I could type in Fantasy King old eye patch, and it builds so many other details that I hadn't thought to notice. Does he have beard? Does he have red eyes? What race is he? There's so many details that it fills in for you that helps you get a better picture. Especially when you're working with kids, they need that visualized image to help fill in the details so they can be as distinct and as descriptive as they want to be. And then finally, we have Adobe Firefly. Now, Adobe Firefly is really interesting because it's the ethical source. It wasn't trained on random images on the internet. It only knows what the Adobe stock images have on them. So, if you type in Batman, it has no idea what that is because it's copyrighted. It would take half bat, half man and try to shove something at you. It's a pretty good image generator, but it has no idea what a lot of the copyrighted and restricted materials out there are. For D&D, this can be good and bad. Granted, it doesn't really know what a hill dwarf or an Aasimar or a dragonborn is. But let me tell you one of my favorite lessons that I give to my 7th graders for. And this is excellent for helping with kids as they're trying to come up with something new. What I would do is I would put an image up, just an image at the beginning of class. And I would say, all right guys, you guys are up for a competition. You have 5 minutes to see who can come up with the closest image to the one that I have on the screen. Ready, set, go. And they would start off with, oh, a man with a hat. A man with a hat with blue eyes and the hat is green, there's a feather. A man with a hat and blue eyes and green feather, and there's mountains in the background and he's looking to the left. And you can see them just begin to snowball and begin to really delve into what the descriptions on those are. It's a really great tool for getting your writing juices flowing, especially if you have a small image in your head and you can kick it out there and you don't want interference from Marvel or from currently existing anime or shows. It's not bad. Plus, if you're worried about the support of digital artists, this is the one you can use without any guilt. I know, this isn't groundbreaking. You've probably used DALL-E to make character art when you were making your players, sure. There's a lot more to it than just scenes that you're going to show your players. Have you ever had a player pick a fight that you totally were not prepared for? Now, typically I would call a 5-minute break so I could go online and scramble for my best maps or subscriptions. Shout out to Zipiku, they are the best maps anywhere. And rarely would I find them to ever be appropriate or just right for what I was trying to do. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with running theater of the mind, and I've got some generic terrain pieces that I could use that are modular and nice and 3D printed. Those sometimes take a while to set up, or maybe they're just not right. Here's what you do. You jump into Midjourney, or you jump into DALL-E 3, and you try something like top-down battle map bridge crossing no grid. Now, you can adjust your style. You can add keywords like fantasy or octane render for something pretty realistic. You can whip out a map in mere seconds, drop it down onto whatever tabletop you're using for whenever you come across something that they're not prepared for. Which, if your players are having a good time and they're invested, hopefully that happens a lot. It really helps them retain that player agency, and well, you get to look like you're really cool coming up with these maps that they had no idea they're going to be using. Finally, it's all about fluff. The extra. The details that aren't included in your main works. Now, large language models, that's what ChatGPT and Claude, they're specifically tasked to generate content that's considered normal. It struggles with creative or unique concepts because it's only learned what has already existed. It takes all of the extremes of ideas and just kind of averages them out. A story that's written by AI is lackluster, uninteresting, and sometimes even disconnected. It tends to contradict itself a lot, and it's just not a good tool to help you generate or come up with the world. It is, however, an excellent assistant. Let it fill in the details that you don't expect to be unique to your world or to your story. Tell it what you need and what you've written, and it will help kick that up quickly. So, for example, let's say we have a small village that exists in lands that's influenced by the Persian Empire. I have a very important NPC that is staying at the end, waiting to be contacted by the party to continue the plotline that they're on. I've got that part figured out. What I don't want to waste 30 minutes on is creating other people and places around this small, out-of-the-way backwater town. So I'd tell ChatGPT to create several buildings around the village, start with an inn, give it a name, create 3 patrons, a barkeep, and describe the outside of the inn. Then create a few shops that would fit a mining desert village with shopkeepers. I need a unique feature to help differentiate this village from the other locations, so give me an interesting feature about the town. And just like that, it fills in the details and helps me prepare for what the players will run into. And it's not just useful for generating content, it's really good at summarizing ideas. If you use the same conversation within ChatGPT as your helper the entire time, you'll simply just ask for a summary at any time. For instance, if you're creating handouts or you have an information database that the players can see. My world anvil has several regions that are easily summarized by the AI, giving the players a brief on the layout without drowning them in the lore. But I'll say this because I think it's worth saving just one more time. It's not about handing over creative control to the AI. It's about using it to handle the small details so that way you can focus on the bigger picture. The AI will understand the tropes, the themes, and the stylings of your world. That will make it so much easier to help you maintain the consistency and the depth that you want in your campaign. Alright guys, there you have it. 3 powerful ways to use AI to enhance your D&D campaign. Whether it's capturing ideas with ChatGPT, setting the scene with Midjourney or Adobe Firefly, or just managing the non-essentials fluff and just saving time, these tools can help you create a much richer, more immersive experience for your players. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for seeing future content. Tell me in the comments, how are you using AI? Maybe I'll make a follow-up video to this in the 6 months when everything changes. It's a very exciting time to be a DM, that's for sure. Thanks for watching. I'm Jared from Carpe Diem, and remember, never stop building.